When I first entered the WNBA, I truly believed that everyone was judged by the same standard, that if you showed up prepared, played the right way, and respected the game, the league would respect you back. Basketball had always rewarded effort in my life. It didn't care where you came from or how popular you were. If you earned it, you earned it. That belief felt solid, unquestionable, and I carried it with me into the league without hesitation. But very early on, I started noticing something I didn't have words for yet. It wasn't obvious, it wasn't loud, it didn't show up on stat sheets or highlight clips. It lived in the space between moments, in reactions, in what was said, and more importantly, in what wasn't. I would see two players make the same mistake, but feel two completely different responses follow. One would get patience, time, space to recover. The other would feel immediate pressure to be perfect the next time. At first, I brushed it off. I told myself I was overthinking, that this was just part of being new. But the pattern kept repeating. I noticed how some players could play freely, trusting their instincts without fear, while others seemed to operate under a microscope. For some, mistakes were treated as learning moments. For others, they felt like warnings. And the more I watched, the clearer it became that this wasn't random. It wasn't personal either. It was structural, quiet, deeply ingrained. That's when I started to understand that not everyone enters the league on equal footing, even if the jerseys look the same. Some players arrive with years of trust already built. Others arrive carrying uncertainty that they didn't create themselves, and the league responds to that difference in subtle but powerful ways. Protection doesn't look like favoritism when you're inside it. It looks like patience. It looks like benefit of the doubt. It looks like being allowed to struggle without immediately being questioned. And being tested doesn't look like punishment either. It looks like pressure, like shorter margins, like needing to be sharp all the time just to stay even. At first, realizing this was uncomfortable because it challenged something I wanted to believe very badly. I wanted the league to be a place where basketball spoke louder than anything else, where performance alone decided everything. And while performance absolutely matters here, it isn't the only currency being exchanged. I started paying attention to how trust moved through the room. Who had it automatically? Who had to earn it every day? Who could afford to take risks? Who couldn't? And once I started seeing it, I couldn't stop. It wasn't about talent gaps. It wasn't about effort. It was about predictability, about reliability, about what teams already knew versus what they were still trying to learn. Being tested didn't mean I was disliked. It meant I was unknown. That realization changed how I interpreted everything. The physicality, the scrutiny, the way certain possessions felt heavier than others. It wasn't the league trying to push me out. It was the league trying to figure out who I was under pressure, whether I could handle discomfort without changing, whether I could stay composed when patience wasn't guaranteed. And that's when the internal conflict started, because part of me wanted fairness in the purest sense. Same mistakes, same reactions, same freedom. But another part of me began to understand why that expectation wasn't realistic at this level. This league is built on trust earned over time, and time is the one thing rookies don't have yet. Being tested is actually the first step toward being trusted, but it doesn't feel that way when you're inside it. It feels isolating, heavy, like every moment matters more than it should. And that weight can either sharpen you or slowly wear you down. During those early days, I felt that weight constantly, in practice, in games, in how I prepared. I wasn't just playing basketball anymore. I was proving that I could survive uncertainty, that I wouldn't fold when the room stayed quiet, that I wouldn't rush growth just to escape pressure. And that's when the question changed for me. I stopped asking why some players were protected and others were tested. I started asking myself something harder. How do you move from one category to the other? Because the truth is, nobody stays tested forever, but not everyone survives long enough to be protected. And understanding that difference was the first real lesson the league taught me. But how? The testing didn't ease up. After that realization, it intensified. Once you become aware that you're being measured differently, every possession starts to feel heavier. Not because the game changes, but because the margin for error does. I could feel it in the way defensive pressure came quicker, in how contact felt more deliberate, in how moments that others could brush off lingered a little longer when they happened to me. It wasn't hostile. It was purposeful. The league was asking a question again and again, quietly, without words. Can you stay the same when we don't make this comfortable for you? And that question followed me everywhere. In practice, where I knew every rep mattered more than the last. In games, where one hesitation could erase 3 good decisions. In my own head, where confidence had to be rebuilt daily instead of assumed. There were stretches where I played well and still felt like I was on trial. Like consistency mattered more than impact. Like stability mattered more than brilliance. And that's a hard adjustment when you come from a place where creativity and instinct were encouraged. I started noticing how veterans navigated those same moments with ease. Not because they were better in every way, but because the league trusted their responses. Their mistakes didn't raise questions. minded. And that difference can wear on you if you let it. I had nights where I replayed small moments over and over, wondering if they helped me or hurt me, if they moved me closer to being trusted or pushed me further away. The pressure wasn't loud, but it was constant, and it demanded a choice. I could either resent the testing and let it shrink my game, or I could accept it as part of the process and let it sharpen me. Slowly, I understood that being tested meant the league saw potential worth measuring. Indifference would have been worse. Testing meant I was being watched closely for a reason. And once that clicked, I stopped seeing the pressure as something done to me and started seeing it as something I had to move through. That didn't make it easier overnight, but it gave it meaning. And meaning changes everything when you're trying to survive at this level. That understanding didn't remove the weight, but it changed how I carried it. Instead of looking at every tough moment as proof that I didn't belong, I started seeing them as signals pointing toward what the league valued most: reliability, emotional control, the ability to stay grounded when nothing around you feels secure. Still, there were moments when that balance was hard to maintain. I remember one stretch where I did everything right on paper, solid minutes, smart on both ends, yet the response stayed muted. No extra trust, no shift in responsibility. And that silence was confusing, because silence can mean progress here, but it can also mean waiting to see if this version of you is permanent or temporary. That's when doubt tries to creep in, not about your ability, but about your patience. You start asking yourself how long you can stay steady without visible reward, how long you can keep believing in work that isn't being acknowledged yet. I noticed how easy it would be to force moments just to be seen, to chase attention instead of growth, and that temptation was dangerous, because the league doesn't punish failure as much as it punishes inconsistency. Veterans know this, coaches know this, systems are built around this, and once I understood that, I realized that being tested isn't about proving how good you are on your best day. It's about proving who you are on your most ordinary ones. Can you show up the same way when nothing is going your way? Can you stay composed when the spotlight isn't on you? Can you protect the structure even when you're not being protected by it? That realization was uncomfortable, but it was also clarifying. It told me exactly what kind of player I needed to become if I wanted to move forward, not just survive. And from that point on, the test stopped feeling endless and started feeling directional, like it was guiding me towards something rather than holding me back. That's when my focus stopped being about proving myself and started being about refining myself. I became more intentional with everything, not just how I played, but how I listened, how I responded, how I handled moments that didn't go my way. I learned that in this league, trust isn't built through loud performances. It's built through quiet consistency. Showing up the same way every day mattered more than one great night. I paid attention to spacing, timing, and communication, even when the play wasn't designed for me. I stopped forcing moments and let the game come to me. And slowly, without anyone announcing it, things began to change. Instructions became shorter, corrections felt less urgent, responsibility increased in small ways that only someone inside the system would notice. It wasn't protection yet, but it was progress. I realized that veterans weren't guarding their space out of ego. They were guarding it because the system depends on predictability, and unpredictability is risky at this level. Once I understood that, I stopped taking the testing personally. I saw it for what it was, a process designed to see who could be trusted when things tightened and margins disappeared. That perspective gave me patience, and patience gave me clarity. Instead of reacting to every moment, I started absorbing them. Instead of rushing growth, I let it take shape naturally. And in that space, I felt something new. Not approval, not praise, but recognition. The kind that doesn't need words. The kind that tells you you're moving closer to being trusted, even if you're not fully there yet. By that point, I finally understood something that had taken me longer than I expected to accept. The league wasn't asking me to change who I was. It was asking me to prove that who I was could last. Protection isn't given to the loudest voice or the most exciting moment. It's given to the player the system trusts not to break when the game turns tight. And that trust isn't built through popularity or hype. It's built through repetition, through showing up the same way when nobody is watching, through making when the spotlight isn't on you. I realized that some players look protected because they've already survived years of testing, years of pressure, years of moments that fans never see, and rookies aren't being singled out, they're being studied. Once that clicked, the frustration softened. I stopped comparing my journey to anyone else's timeline and focused on building something solid instead of something visible. I accepted that being tested wasn't a sign of weakness. It was a sign that the league was paying attention. And attention, even when it's uncomfortable, is an opportunity. That mindset didn't make the process easier, but it made it purposeful. I stopped chasing validation and started investing in reliability. And in doing that, I realized the truth I wish every rookie understood from the beginning. Being tested is not the opposite of being trusted. It's the path toward it. Looking back now, I'm grateful the league didn't make things easy for me. If I had been protected too soon, I might have confused comfort with growth. Being tested forced me to listen more closely, to understand the game beyond what happens when the ball is in my hands. It taught me that trust in this league is quiet, built slowly, and often recognized only after it's already there. The WNBA isn't unfair, but it is demanding in ways people don't always see. It asks you to prove not just that you can perform, but that you can endure uncertainty without losing yourself. And that lesson reaches far beyond basketball. In any space where the stakes are high, where systems already exist, you earn your place by staying consistent when it would be easier to react or withdraw. That's what this journey showed me. Protection doesn't come first, testing does. And if you survive that phase with patience and purpose, trust eventually follows. If this story helped you understand the game on a deeper level, subscribe for more honest, long-form basketball documentaries that go beyond highlights and into the reality players live every day.